Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
Welcome, everybody, to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. I'm here today with Tania, and we've got the lovely Sophie from Cozy Home Care. She's the CEO, and she's going to be chatting to us about her business today.
Yeah, so welcome, Sophie. It's great to have you here. To begin with, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and your journey through the NDIS, and then a little bit more about Cozy Home Care?
Sure. So thanks for having me here today. I'm just one of the many people that were drawn to the sector because of the impact it creates. My journey career-wise has been through the world of corporate, landing smack bang at the trial sites of the NDIS in the Hunter. And I am a passionate believer that we can create some serious impact for a cohort that's been, that had been up until then fairly forgotten. So I come at this with lived experience of caring for someone with a disability, with a great plan and a great organization. So Cozy Home Care has been around for 7 years. We started our journey as an organization in the community services space, and fairly soon the founder realized that there was an opportunity for us to deliver more complete services to people who required housing accommodation. So Cozy Home Care is fixed on developing that part of the business. We have 10 with a view to 20 supported independent living accommodation houses towards the end of the year. We provide SIL, SDA, respite care, and sort of we're working to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. I mean, we're here to build a community that's inclusive and accessible.
That's brilliant. Now, you're the CEO at Cozy Home Care. I'd love to know from you, why was the organization founded? What inspired it to get off the ground and get into the space that you're in?
Oh, look, I've had this conversation over many dinners with the founder, and he keeps coming back to the one thing. He wanted to give back. I think he acknowledges that people who don't understand how fortunate they are in a point in their lives where they have the opportunity to give back. Mm-hmm. And he saw this as the area for him to focus on. There must be a family history often. For me, it's personal. He often says to me, look, I just see that I've got an opportunity to give back. So he jumped at the opportunity.
That's fantastic.
Could you share with us a little bit about your journey from 0 participants to 10 SIL houses, and I guess what that looked like and why you chose the business model that you have? And I guess I know a little bit about Cozy Home Care as far as originally it wasn't SIL and SDA that you were focusing on. You were doing a lot of direct supports, and over that time you pivoted and you stopped delivering supports you phased out delivering direct supports, because you realized that SIL was actually the space that was going to be best for you. And that's something that Paul and I often talk about, is knowing who you are and who you're serving. And sometimes saying no to clients is quite hard, but it does make it is actually what makes you successful. It's the old John West adage of it's the people you don't work with that actually make the business. So how did you pivot from direct care to SIL, and how did you get the bravery or the courage, I suppose, to say no to paid work, to focus on where you knew you needed to be?
Well, I've actually I've run a completely community services, direct services organization. I started and ran community services exclusively business some years back. And I know that is a lot of work. It requires constant, persistent marketing. As you would know, the staff that come to work are casual predominantly. They have several jobs to keep them going. It's hard to hold on to people, to attract the right people, to retain the right people, to deliver those direct services. So once you've built a platform of skilled workers and you can see a way of retaining that workforce that you've worked so hard to attract, then it's a natural progression, not just because you want to retain them, also because there's this constant demand. I mean, you would have heard the one thing that's in the news constantly is housing, housing, housing. Well, if you can imagine a disadvantaged cohort having to deal with competing for housing. So supported independent living, supported disability accommodation is that solution. So there's the demand from the market. There's the ability to retain staff because you're offering them longer shifts. You're offering them a sustainable wage because they have Monday to Sunday opportunities to work with the one client. They build those relationships with the participants. They actually, that is the thing that they woke up one day and thought, I think I'm going to be a disability support worker. I think I want to be the person that helps or makes a difference in someone's life. And so rather than, 2 hours here, 3 hours there, the commute in between, managing all of that logistically is expensive, resource dense. It doesn't make sense. If you can provide a stable or as stable as possible an environment for those disability support workers to go to, then you actually start to build a bit of a layer of constant revenue. And I think that feeds back. You can feed that back into the organization and you can then start to invest in growth. Otherwise, I feel like some of the community services out there are often, racing constantly to make sure that they minimize the cost of operation, maximize the time with the support workers, and it doesn't always gel. So I think it's great retention. It's great to be able to say, okay, we can bank on that constant pace for us to consider growth. And there is a supply demand issue in the market. So I think it was a great time to really create impact, to really give back in the context of housing.
Nice. I really love how you made the business model fit, obviously, what was needed in the area, but also what you chose to do was something that really benefited the employees as well. And so it wasn't just, there's obviously a business decision that has to be made, but that business decision was made with the idea of, this will be better for our employees, offering them better conditions, better hours. And I think that obviously, we've had chats also with people around staffing and that sort of thing. It's a big issue with really having your staff engaged in the business, what they're doing, and being really happy with what they're doing.
Absolutely. And look, we throw a few things at them. We've got this massive training program we've brought in. So people come with all sorts of skills, and then we just provide additional layers that gives them a greater satisfaction within the disability services sector.
It sounds like you got a lot going on. What do you find the biggest challenge in actually running a profitable NDIS business?
Look, I have to say the most important thing are your people. It's also, I think, one of the difficulties post-COVID, and because so many changes happened to immigration laws and it made it difficult to have a reasonable mix of frontline workers. I would say that the hardest thing is the retention piece, the attraction, the retention piece. For suitable support workers. You would have heard in the latest budget that they've increased the salary of pay to aged care workers. In the disability sector, we have a slightly better scenario, but still people are trying to eke out a living. And it's not always possible if you're not available to do the significantly longer rosters. It's not always possible for people to compare that to something where they know that they've got their 38 plus hours a week. So I think it's always going to be the people with the right skills. Because in order for clients to have a sense that they've had the best possible service, it's not just about the physical environment. It really is about that human interaction.
Yeah.
And people seeing this as a career path.
Mm. Yeah, I think that, as you mentioned there, it is all about the people, but obviously sometimes just finding the people can be the problem. And so, we've had a bit of those conversations around, managing to find the staff can often be harder than finding the clients. And, then managing how everyone works together there. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think that might be a bit of a relief for some of our listeners as well, who are maybe in the same boat thinking it's just them.
Yeah, we're all fishing from the same pond, I often say. Yeah.
And what is next for Cozy Home Care? What's your next set of goals? I know you're moving from 10 SIL houses to 20 SIL houses in a 12-month period. That's a pretty big goal. Is there other goals outside of that, or is that where the organisation is focusing right now?
Well, I think it's the scale is not just in the housing context. It's also in the reach. So we're looking to grow beyond our geography, our natural geography. So Cozy Home Care began in Melbourne. It currently serves Melbourne and its suburbs. There's a trick to finding the right location, and it has to do with, proximity to services, to families, to amenities, etc., as with all housing. But I think that the ambition is to grow beyond that and to explore other areas where SIL and SDA demand are unmet. And that could be, interstate, it could be regional, it could be into specific communities. We're building layers of experience as we go. And so the ambition's fairly, it's a big job. 20 SIL houses by the end of the year. It's pretty ambitious. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we continue to support the service that we deliver with robust processes, with good systems, with great technology, all the efficiencies that we're going to require. So we're putting some serious smarts into the business. And I said this to somebody the other day. Yep, people are fantastic. Pinpointing the most effective technology to rise to the governance demands of the NDIS is really vital. Making sure that we're never out of step with what the Quality and Safeguards Commission's requesting of us as a business, and making sure that we have the appropriate, most contemporary processes to filter, what works, what doesn't, and to make decisions as a group. So some of the best ideas come from the front lines, I always say. We have leads that come from everywhere. We have referrals that come from participants' families and support workers. So it's not a linear process so much. I think it's and you've got to be able to get your head around that quickly. You've got to be able to understand that it's not so textbook, our sector. It's quite an interesting sector to be in, and it's a great challenge. If you're studying an MBA out there, this is a place to get your chops.
Yeah, that's fantastic. On that idea of, what's next for you guys, obviously it's the 20 homes and that, and as you move beyond your geographical location as well, I think that's a great goal to take what you're doing here and replicate it. Do you see adding other services, or are you
absolutely
really into that?
Absolutely, yeah. So, the issue with housing and disability is housing for one particular cohort. There are a number of other areas that require supports. I often think about, veterans, over 55s. There are other sectors of our population that are receiving little or little support, consistent support. There hasn't been a very strong strategy around other cohorts that have been kind of left behind. I think the Indigenous sector is another area that we probably want to have a really good look at, because that's a whole new area. The standard model that serves the current population may not necessarily serve the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander population. I remember years ago being at the launch of one of the ministers, and there was a group of community listening to him, and their priorities were completely different. So we need to be able to provide a service model that suits the different sectors that have this need. So for a remote Indigenous community, roads are probably more important, and then houses. So because you can't drive an electric chair, as somebody told me. One of the aunties said to me, "You can't drive an electric chair, you've got crap roads." She said. I laughed. I thought, yeah, so right. So yeah, there's different sectors of the population that we could serve by coming up with some, out of the box solutions for them, and to not just think in that one context is the only business model.
Yeah, I love that.
And the name Cozy Home Care, to me at least, implies aged care also. You mentioned veterans, but are you looking at in the future moving into the support at home type scheme?
We could certainly look at it. It's not on my short to medium term radar. I would think that down the track, possibly. I mean, there are all sorts of exciting models of housing that are proposed and in practice all over the world. And I think that we need to look beyond our shores to how people, for example, in the Netherlands are managing dementia villages, and people in the US and in Canada are looking at other types of housing models. In France, there's a model where a carer looks after a mother, moves in with somebody that requires care and provides the care in exchange for housing. I mean, there's all sorts of iterations of the caring model that we can look to and we can test. I think that because of where I have come from, I'm very open to alternative solutions, very open. I think in Sydney, there's a model of house sharing with young people that can't afford housing. So they're students, and while they're students, they're housed with somebody who's a little bit older, who's got a massive house and needs someone to water the plants and someone to do the shopping for them a few times a week. And in exchange, they get housing. It's actually, cool. Sky's the limit. We have to stop thinking there's only one way to tackle this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I love how passionate you are about this whole looking for new ways and really thinking outside the box. I'd love to know what would be a couple of pieces of advice that you might give to a struggling NDIS provider. Maybe they're just starting, or they've encountered some serious roadblocks on their path to growing, maybe to where you are or something similar.
Yeah, I think it's all about laying some solid foundations. I think a lot of you want people to have the impetus to jump into the sector and to have the passion to jump into the sector, but laying some really, just some basic foundations. Seek the most efficient investment in IT for yourselves. Look to using cloud. Look to good referral channels for your workforce. I think that there's a lot of people that have great passion, but they just need to make sure that they've got, the basics, the simple basics of any business. The New South Wales Chamber has an consulting arm that people can go to and get the standard documents, the 5 or 10 basic documents that will help them set up a business. There's information networks that are informal and formal throughout the disability sector that you can tap into. Network, speak to other people, join informal groups. There's any number of NDIS provider network groups in Facebook, for example. I don't think that that there's one organization that does this perfectly. And I've worked in disability in very, very large disability providers with very large budgets.
Yep.
And I don't think they have all the answers either. So I think it's a mix of the networking and the knowledge that you can capture from other providers, and to ask. One of the beautiful things about our sector is, the camaraderie. There's a tremendous camaraderie in the disability world. So Ask other people, ask people with disability, join your local council's inclusion team and find out what they're doing and how they're communicating to the community about what services are available and how. Find strategic partnerships with non-competitive partners and figure out what you might be able to do better together.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, it's really cool. I think that you're so right there about just finding those out-of-the-box solutions, because I have spoken to a lot of smaller providers who just see this one thing that they've maybe seen somebody else has succeeded at. And they've just gone, that's what I have to do. That's how I be successful. But this is such a diverse industry with such diverse participants needing a range of diverse solutions. And, if you can really capture the heart of the people around you, as you say, like joining local council is a great idea to be able to understand what the people in your local area really need. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it emphasizes the need to really build that community. And I think it's, we've talked about this a number of times on the podcast, but it's Cozy Home Care seems to be really clear about what you offer, where you add value, and that makes it then really easy for you to go, right, we have a method now that works. We're going to be able to scale that, and double the amount of participants and houses we have in 12 months because we're really clear on who we are. We have processes that work. We've got the underpinning systems, and that allows that to scale that model. And then you've got this whole idea of continuous improvement to test and measure and continue to improve the business by using innovation. So it seems like that seems to be your path to success, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you said something there, to build a community. I mean, our vision is to build a community. Our published vision is to build a community that's inclusive and accessible. And that's great, for the persons whom we serve. But in general, just to build a community. I mean, one of the things I said to somebody recently is, an allied health professional is probably one of your best friends. Stick close to them, learn about what they're encountering and figure out how you might work together to have a more comprehensive solution. So you deliver this, I deliver that. You get a client that has, is at the early stages of developing a plan. Well, let's figure out what I can do to help them or who I can connect them with.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, I'm going to refer you to somebody and you're just planting the seed with that as a future strategic partner of yours. Yeah. So there's ways about growing this and scaling it that aren't, necessarily, just black and white. Yes, get your foundations ready, network the hell out of people, make sure that everyone's, you've got a growth mindset within your team. I mean, when I said earlier on, we get referrals from our frontline staff will say to us, oh, I heard of someone who's looking for someone. And by the way, they might be interested in Cozy Home Care. And I think, brilliant,
Fantastic.
That means we're establishing that growth mindset little by little. And I think that that's gold because everyone is committed to the solutions that we provide and they're seeing the success in that. So they want other people to have the opportunity to experience it.
And they're obviously bought into that vision as well because they've then become your brand ambassadors and are out talking about the good things that you're doing, which means that your staff feel rewarded and engaged and, proud of what they're doing. So it talks highly of your organization and how the employees feel that they would feel comfortable to promote the service to other people as well.
Yeah. And that's an evolving scenario as well. We're slowly but surely growing a culture of people who, like you said, are proud, are proud to have the barbecue conversations about what they do for a living and how they see themselves making an impact that's not just about revenue. It's coincidental that with that level of commitment and enthusiasm, you start to see revenue come through the door. The referrals refer themselves.
Yeah, and you in everything you've said, you haven't spoken about paid media. You haven't spoken about, social media platforms and I guess what new providers, when they come to the space, always ask me, well, how much should I spend on Google AdWords? How much should I spend on this? It's like, well, it is all about those connections. People want to work with people. People want to refer people they know to people that they know and trust. And it's building that trust first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Which are all things that are free to do as well, right? It's all free and completely, it's just an investment of your time and making that a priority to go out and create those connections.
Yeah. And I think that you find, it's very difficult to measure. And, my business marketing professors would probably be appalled, but it's very difficult to measure the exact impact of all of the paid marketing. It's very difficult to peg it and say, oh, that ad brought in X number of clients. We'd all like to think that that's possible, but it really isn't at the end of the day. That relational sort of marketing that happens naturally, it's actually really impactful. I think you find, as you said, all of a sudden you've got this sort of wave of enthusiasm for the work that you do. And it's like a contagion. You want to tell people, I'm doing this at Cozy Home Care. I've got people who are happy, who are living better lives as a result of the stuff that we do for them.
Cool.
So you say that a few times and people start to take notice. And you've created a wave of communication.
Brilliant. I love that. That's fantastic. Hey, look, thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us today.
More than happy.
Appreciate it. And hearing all about Cozy Home Care's journey, where you've come from and where your heart is for the industry as well has been fantastic. So thank you so much.
And thank you for having me at episode 10. Very exciting for you.
Well, listeners, that's actually it for this series. So I want you to join us next series because now next episode is going to be starting on the 18th of July. So we're going to run this in seasons. And so from the 18th of July, we'll be back at it again with more episodes to help you build your provider business. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.